as I always do with Jack, and how he always fails to do it, I'll ask him a question to try and define it, and he will avoid the question. He never defines anything. So it's difficult to know exactly what Jack defines. And if you think Jack is this wonderful, squeaky clean person, then you're missing a couple of points. You're missing, for example, the fact that he posted a video in which he described himself torturing a fucking poodle to death. I'm sorry, and what's going on here? I know that this is a cheap shot at him, and it's sort of like slightly off topic, but I'm not going to get lectured about morality and physical chastisement of children by an ex-dog torturer and someone.
And we literally it was at the point of dying, literally. It was in this inner tube, and it couldn't get out of the inner tube because it was just too small of a dog to be able. So it would have, had we just left the dog there in the middle of the pond, it would have eventually just grown weary of trying to swim. It would have drowned. And eventually I just was like, I don't know what, something clicked, like my conscience or whatever just clicked in me, and I was like, oh my goodness, we're about to take the life of this poor dog. But we'd gone so far, you know what I mean? I was like, it's just weird that it's sort of freaky. I mean, so what can we do as individuals, I guess, to sort of safeguard us from getting to that point? I think part of it is, of course, acknowledging the fact that people have gotten to that point and they've done things. So maybe trying to figure out what gives us our identity as people, as humans, and do we allow for that to provide for us such a strong foundation and basis that even when we're in a group of people, even in a group of friends, we are willing to be able to step outside of that and say no, because we realize that our identity and our understanding of purpose and meaning is not to be wrapped up so intricately within that friendship, but rather it's something greater than the people themselves.
It seems that we have the capacity to say, I don't know, we're uncertain about this, we're still looking into this. But when you're of a religious ilk, I mean, how many times have you heard from the pulpit, we're not too sure, we're waiting for evidence on this one. We're still making our minds up, we're uncertain. No, they preach. They preach as certainty that about which they have absolutely no evidence, and they expect people to quietly sit there and respect that I have reached my own conclusions. I have no evidence that they are necessarily correct, but I think that it is a reasonable inference to draw. I suspect that when in all the conversations I previously had with Jack, and when I have seen him have discussions with other people, there comes a point where he simply cannot answer the question, and you can see, not only in the tone of his voice, but also in his body language, he becomes deeply frustrated, and he becomes very, very petulant. And as I say, there's no better expression for it. He starts throwing his toys out of the pram because he becomes very childlike and petulant, and I think that deep down he knows that he can't answer it. And what I'm wondering is whether, when he's going through that process, he is also thinking, not only can I not answer this, I can't actually justify it to myself. I don't know the answer to that, but I suspect that is why he becomes so hostile, because you're challenging something that is so precious to him, but which is so delusional. If someone like him has the audacity to publicly claim that I am dishonest, I'm not apologising for picking on him. Jack is I think underneath it all, a decent bloke. I think he's probably going through some sort of turmoil with having to grapple with the absolute nonsense that he believes in. Only yesterday.
So in terms of my perception of you being a dishonest person, like I can go back to this and I can see actually his very clear evidence, not only of this video, but also with the Magic Sandwich Show, of you vilifying my character, you presenting a portrayal of my character in a very negative way that engages in generalities that are clearly one-sided. And you did it on the Magic Sandwich Show this past Sunday, and which reaches audiences of thousands. Now, to me, I am baffled. Like, to me, the fact that, I guess, of course, I don't expect. This isn't an issue of what I expect of people. But I think that on YouTube there is, to a certain extent, a sort of community. And I would like to think that there is enough of a community that they would call you out on how you treat other people, especially when you are clearly engaging in this sort of vilification of a person's character.
Well, I think that's a fair comment, but I suppose one way I would respond to that is that everyone is free to make whatever criticisms they like about me, and they can do it on my channel by way of video responses, by way of channel comments, by way of comments on any video that I make. I think it's somewhat bold of you to lay that charge against me when you had made a series of videos in which you said that you were just simply going to block and ignore criticism. Do those two things sort of like match up?
No, they don't, because
this is how I'm going to be responding to the use of ridicule and mockery on my channel. Your comments will be removed. You will be blocked. Your video responses will not be accepted. Your voice will not be heard. Now, you can certainly critique and criticize my beliefs, my thoughts, my approach. But if your primary tactic is the use of ridicule and mockery, then you don't need to watch my channel. You can unsubscribe from my channel, and you can expect that you will not be hearing from me. And we on our channels deleted and blocked every single person that took as their primary approach this use of ridicule and mockery and condescension, and was being intellectually dishonest and overly simplistic intentionally, time and time and time again. Now, you can certainly critique and criticize my beliefs, my thoughts, my approach. But if your primary tactic is the use of ridicule and mockery,
once again, your presentation of that video is inaccurate. If you watch that video had absolutely nothing to do with me blocking people simply because they disagreed with me. As a matter of fact, in my video, I make very clear that that I would accept comments, and the fact is comments were accepted of people who simply disagreed with me. So, and also, if you were following...
Some people would disagree with you on that. I mean, proportional response, and whatever you think about my honesty or otherwise, I don't think you would be able to lay any accusations against proportional response. You posted a somewhat innocuous comment.
Wrong approach. No, I know what he posted a comment that said wrong approach. And the thing is, if you go to my channel, you will see his comment. His comment's up there. The thing is, the comments were set to approval.
Okay.
So... if the comments are...
Jack, and I apologize for the personal attacks that I have made upon you, but again, it kind of goes back to a discussion that we had very early on in the BlogTv show that you did, that you invited me on to co-host on, and how do we actually enter into dialogue with each other when people do have a propensity to be quite sensitive about certain issues and can consider what others may perceive to be innocuous comments, they take personally and offensively. And I think this may be an area that is worthy of exploration, because I don't know how to engage with theists without coming across as being strident, belligerent, arrogant, and generally offensive. I don't know how to do it. You tell me how I can do it. Educate me.
I guess I'm surprised that you don't know how to. I mean, to me, it's really simple about how you treat people. I mean, it doesn't seem to me like it's really that difficult of a task to learn how to treat people the same way you would like to be treated. I think that, I mean, it seems to me a pretty safe place to start that. And this is why I've actually been able to have countless conversations with people of whom I disagree with, because I recognize that I can treat people in a nice, civil way and not have to slander or degrade or vilify or be dishonest in the way that I talk about them. And simply because I may think that something they say is ridiculous, I don't have to treat them as ridiculous people. And I don't have to go on talking about how you're trying to pretend to be an armchair psychologist and wondering about their internal state of emotions and thoughts. I don't do that, actually. I don't post up videos talking about the deep internal states of atheists and how they clearly must be emotionally troubled. To me, why? Why would I, I don't post up videos talking about my thoughts about your internal state of being, DPR, and how I think, given the way that you've talked about me, how perhaps there's associations going on with things that happened in your life before and blah, 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 blah. I don't do that. I treat you the way that I would like to be treated, as someone that likes to be treated with a sense of courtesy, likes to be treated as though, even though you don't respect my beliefs, even though you think my beliefs are ridiculous, that nonetheless you talk to me as a human, and you talk to me as someone who has clearly thought about what they believe and why, regardless of whether or not you think it's ridiculous or not. And I'm not asking you to respect my beliefs. I'm not asking you to accept them. I'm not asking you to think that they're not ridiculous. What I'm simply pointing out to you, what I'm giving to you or anyone else, is saying, look, if you want to have a conversation, DPRJones, with someone, then whether you think their beliefs are foolish, ridiculous, or absurd is irrelevant to how it is you should treat them as humans of which you desire to have meaningful conversations with. To me, that seems fairly straightforward.
I fully accept everything that you've just said, but and I think in everyday interactions that works very well. But let's face it, that people come onto YouTube and BlogTv in order to express normally a particular opinion, and I would have no problems with like meeting you in person. Going to having coffee together, wandering along the street. I'm not saying arm in arm, but wandering along the street, having a general chat. But all of that is fine, and I would have no problem with that. But there does come a point when, if we are going to have some sort of discourse about beliefs, there is going to come an impasse where I don't know how we can avoid the fact that we are going to disagree, and disagree in a way which is going to be upsetting for one person or the other.
No, why?
No. I mean, we can avoid that conversation altogether.
No, we don't need to. Once again, I think DPRJones, what it seems to me is, in some of the conversations I've had with you, is there's, it seems to me like when I say something, you hear something different than what I actually say. For example, what I've been talking about here was not avoiding. You actually asked me a question. I actually gave you an answer, DPR. Yes. So next time you're on the Magic Sandwich Show, you can, and we recorded it too, right? So you can say, out of all the questions I've ever asked him over the years I've talked with him, and over all the different BlogTv shows that are recorded and are on Jack's show, he never answered anything that I ever talked about except for this one time. Right? So there you go.
I'll bear that in mind. But but I think there's something slightly more fundamental to it, and that is our basic beliefs are different, and now addressing the differences in those beliefs is obviously going to leave. It can't be addressed without. I mean, okay. Let me try and approach it from a different angle. How can I politely say that I think that you are deluded in your beliefs which is what I actually feel. How can I say that in a polite way?
I'm not offended by that. Do you think? I mean, I don't see. To me, DPRJones, that's just you're asserting something. So what? I would no more be offended by you saying that than, I mean, if someone told me I was going to hell. So what? I mean, there's Muslims that believe I'm going to hell. I can still treat them in a nice way. I can still talk to them about Islam. I don't. And if I say, you know, I think it's ridiculous that you think I'm going to hell. Okay. But me merely asserting how I think about their beliefs, actually, you know, at some point we both understand what we think about each other's beliefs, and then we need to move on to addressing the content of each other's beliefs, and not just the content of one of the person's beliefs, but the content of each other's beliefs. And oftentimes, DPRJones, to be quite honest, you want to engage in a lot of addressing the content of my beliefs, and you've done very little in terms of engaging in a presentation of your beliefs, which is very easy. It's always easy to sort of go about trying to get someone else to talk about what they're going on, what's going on with them, and make it sound like it's all them, when in reality, when you actually have a back and forth with two people who I think are well grounded and searching to understand their beliefs and why, both people, in my experience, have a degree of understanding that allows for them to say, you know what, I don't know, or to say, I don't understand that, or I can't answer your question because I don't have the answer. You know, so